You are listening to the Revolutionary Love and Resilience podcast. I'm Shelby Leigh, and I am so honored to be here with you today. This podcast bridges the personal and professional, creating space for experts in the wellness and well-being field to be both vulnerable and share their deep wisdom from their years of experience. This podcast weaves trauma awareness, inclusivity, and inspiration for every single person to be able to heal, grow, and become who they want to be, to step into their full authenticity and expand their capacity to claim their best lives as they journey through challenges towards revolutionary love and resilience. We are here today with Taran Walia. She's in Vancouver, BC. However, I had the beautiful privilege of meeting her in Bali, where we both lived for a couple of years at least. I don't know how long you were there, Taran.
2 years, yeah.
2 years, yeah. And every time we have connected, it has been just a beautiful unfolding of getting to know this amazing, multifaceted woman. Every time I'm like, you do that too, and that, and that. And
Same
it's definitely been kindred. And so I'm really excited to introduce you all to Taran. She is a registered professional counselor and coach. She works with approaches that are wholesome, forward-thinking, integrative, and spiritual. She uses counseling theories such as family systems, Gestalt acceptance, commitment theory, experiential techniques such as somatic adult attachment, and so much more. And Taran, I'd love to just let you also introduce yourself if there's anything more you'd like people to know.
Thank you, Shelby. Super honored to be here with you. I've just so much respect for what you do and what you've been through. So I'm feeling very privileged to be here. I feel like you said a lot of it, but really I'm just a woman that has been fierce about her healing journey and, has just stumbled upon different modalities that have helped in the process of becoming a whole person again, even though that is my true nature. So I just have a huge passion in having that conversation, having that in the forefront, and then helping others in the process. And wow, I've just seen even like, it's just such a freedom for me to walk in that because I actually get to give professionally. And it's been, I didn't even know that it could be this good. I knew that I wanted it, but I just, yeah, this space that we're both in is it's a give and take in both ways. It's a receive and give at the same time. And it's beautiful.
Well, I'm so happy to kind of dig into this conversation today around revolutionary love and resilience and how it has shown up in your life, both the challenges that have gotten you to kind of fully or more fully embody revolutionary love and resilience, and also the celebrations.
Yeah.
I'm curious, in your own words, how might you define revolutionary love and resilience?
This keeps coming up. Last night I had this conversation with a woman, or last night, about a woman really suffering with grief and also just doing it herself, and being resilient. And so when I had a conversation with her, and she lives in Vancouver, and Vancouver is a place that just reflects your own personality, your own space, your own mood, and it's just doing that. I know that benefit of being in Bali is that what I felt there was, even though I'm in a mood, there was other people that were love, felt love, and expressed love. And I just, so it was kind of like, it used to give me a space where I could actually be myself and still receive love. And I believe that as humans, especially when we have gone through a lot, we actually need that space being held, because there can be times where we don't know what love feels like, and and it's not present. And a lot of us live, at least including me, without a loveless life, which is just there's no way to live. But it's an experience that's really real for a lot of people. And so the revolutionary love is actually, it's the feeling that you get in oneness with people, that oneness that's created, the love that's felt. It's not no words. It's just this feeling that comes. I personally feel not just alone. I mean, self-love is so profound, and I only know how to get to self-love when I actually know what love feels like. So for me, revolutionary love is togetherness and that experience of love with a bunch of people. And I've been so grateful and fortunate to finally find those places where allowed me to experience love so that I can finally give that to myself.
Wow. Oh, I am just taking that in. I'm already so appreciating all the different ways that we can describe revolutionary love. And I love how you are bringing in this togetherness, this oneness, especially when we're feeling so alone or isolated, that adding that component can be really healing when we can let it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that letting it in. It's that, so it has a threshold, but it just, the more you stay in that space, that's why I really believe in counseling and really believe in, like, we're professional lovers, like in a way, we actually have to cultivate our own compassion and love so that we can give to other people when they don't actually experience it on their day-to-day life. Right. And I mean, you don't have to be a therapist to be a compassionate person, loving person. But sometimes we have to go to those people because it doesn't exist in our life. And how grateful is that? Like how amazing that opportunity and help is present when in moments of not being present in your environment.
Yeah. And resilience. I'm curious, what is resilience to you? How would you define it? How do you find it in your life?
Wow. Okay. Resilience has also helped. I've also experienced resilience with people, with love, with presence of love. And I mean, resilience is a lot of us are naturally, like, it's relative, right? So some people are born with some resilience and they need to work on other aspects of finding resilience. So it's just all relative in how their maybe family systems and where they're born and what they've learned and their personality can help them be strong in moments, right? And also in our society, the weakness is, or like the allowance of all emotions is considered weakness. So that's almost non-resilient. And so that part, which actually needs complete resilience, a complete presence to allow pain to move through you, is something that also I have used other people's loving presence to create. Because it's such a scary place to go to when you're scared, you're not resilient. You're not able to be present and allow the moment to be what it is. And if it wasn't for that safety continuously that was presented in my life, I would be still stuck in places and not allow things to come in. And I still find that coming up here and there. And and at times when I need that help, I have to go and get that help because it's too scary to bring in those aspects. But for me now, resilience has been actually just this being with what is, allowing for whatever is there to be there. And I find at times, like even myself, trying to strategize out of it because it's such a habitual way of being. Being with what is feels more grounded, feels more resilient. And that's for me is resilience, is having presence.
I'm hearing several key words in there, and I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. I'm hearing resilience includes safety, love, presence, and there was one more that you said, being with what is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Does it feel like resilience is made up of those components?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and also strength. You mentioned strength.
Strength. Yeah. I think strength comes with faith. Like, there's a faith aspect to it. It's like this knowing that this is part of the process. Things will change eventually. Just having this faith and trust. I think that's another component in resilience. It's like, yeah, you can't actually get to the other side if you don't have faith and trust. Like, okay, this moment is what is, and it will change. And that's an aspect of faith.
I love that. I'm going to do a do-over here in a minute. Yeah. There's something really important. Oh, yeah, here we go. So I'm really interested in what you talked about, where you actually put your hands in the air and made quotes, and you were talking about weakness and kind of how we can bring strength into our weaknesses. Or I wanted you to unpack that a little bit, because I love that frame, that resilience isn't just this kind of conditioned brute force strength. There's something also important about allowing weakness that can increase resilience as well. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah. So weakness is really, there's no discrimination when it comes to the human body level. It's what we're feeling when we feel joy, when we feel sad, like the body. I know you're a somatic psychotherapist. You know that the body is wired in a way that feels all emotions. It doesn't really discriminate like we humans can. It's like, this is sadness, this is happiness. It's like the body feels what the body feels. And so to consider those intense feelings of possible sadness, grief, anger as quote unquote weakness is just our human way of categorizing it. But really, when we start being with what is, it doesn't discriminate what is. And so that's why it's called weakness, but really it's just you being more resilient to being present in what the body's experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's actually just bringing your capacity and skill up to be present with your sensations and your experience in a human level. And that takes resilience, because it's a challenging place to be, especially when you have trauma, especially when you have, especially when you're told and conditioned in the world that this is not what you're supposed to feel, or you get fear of feeling something and being stuck there because it just, some things actually don't feel good. But when we get out of this labeling, it just is what it is. And that's an aspect of resilience that we all need to cultivate, because otherwise we're just going to be numbing ourselves, doing the things that are not good for us, continuously repeating patterns, all the stuff that we do to ignore what we're feeling and suppress what we're feeling, and it doesn't really get us anywhere.
I love this so much, because we're talking about overcoming conditioning. So with resilience, we're actually able to feel what is and not experience it as positive, negative, good, bad, weak. Those are all the ways that we've been taught to push away certain emotions, embrace certain emotions, run after certain emotions. And when we have resilience, I think what you're saying is that we have the capacity to be with what is in a loving way. And we're not kind of knocked over by creating all these stories about what it means.
Yeah. It's like it makes the situation so much worse when we have a conditioning around something that this is not what you're supposed to be feeling, and you're supposed to be feeling a certain way. It just creates misery, because there's a resistance to the experience. There's a shame and guilt to this experience, which actually causes, so much suffering. And yeah, resilience is being for me, it's fully being okay with what is and moving from that grounded place to make decisions, to make changes in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
you
let information in too, right? You're like, this is information, new information coming in, right? That's gold right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's material for learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a few times, about your own life. And there are some things that really stood out to me where you were talking about, not being able to feel love at certain points, or you just mentioned the word suffering. And I love to create a space here together. If you feel moved to share any of your life story, your life experiences where you didn't have access to revolutionary love or resilience.
Yeah. I would just sympathize with that little girl when I think about my life. I lost my mother at age 4 to suicide, and wow, that little girl suffered a lot because she really missed her as in it's me, but I really missed my mother growing up, and I was really angry with her for what she did, but so I wasn't able to move from that anger towards actually just allowing the missing and the grief to come up. Like I was just so stuck in anger. But what I definitely experienced was a lack of nurture, which ended up just feeling like a lack of love. Even though I had a really present father and a really present grandma, I was just looking for a certain type of love. I needed a certain type of love. And when we're like, it's as a human, we do need both parents. It's not parents, it's just that energy of like masculine energy and like feminine energy. And my father was a masculine man, and he's feminine in his own way, but he can't do the nurture that a woman can. Even though my grandma was present, she wasn't very loving. Like she wasn't very touchy. She wasn't really, she just was a nanny, really. And so I suffered with not experiencing a lot of love, and I just created my life in a way growing up with, how do I get love and approval? And then it just was such inauthentic behavior to find that love and approval. Or I maybe more approval than love, because it wasn't really, it was conditional, and it wasn't really as deep as it could have been. And maybe I just didn't even have the capacity to let that in. But yeah, I for the longest time did not experience a world with a lot of nurture, loving, and like that place, where you can just lay and be held and fall back and know that the world has got your back. But and that being said, I've definitely experienced love in other capacities, but it was just this really big missing. That was part of my life. Yeah.
I'm still really present here in my own body with you sharing that your mom committed suicide. At age 4, I'm feeling the tenderness as you're sharing, and just wanted to take a moment together to just pause, because it's a really big experience. Mm-hmm. Just take a breath.
It's so interesting when we start seeing another person and what they've gone through. I had a client that came in, and she had a very similar story, and I saw her, and she was a little older, so I got to understand her before, when her mom was present, and then after, and it was such a loss. As this complete loss of place in the world that she felt. And anxiety was a huge thing for her. And that just created me to have even more compassion with my journey and my process. And I was a very lost kid for most. I mean, I still feel ungrounded a lot of the times, and I try to create that for myself, and have awareness of where that's coming from. But wow, it's just so much compassion for those aspects that were needed that weren't there, and what ripple effects that created.
It sounds like you've really cultivated a lot of self-awareness and self-compassion and ability to be with this in a way that you have more access to resilience and love now. Would you say that this experience somehow drove you towards this career and this way of being that you're in these days as an adult?
Oh my gosh, completely. Like, so grateful for that to come to play and to push me to find answers, to find like different outlets, because what the present was not acceptable. It was not enough, was just not going to happen for me. I realize sometimes when people go through even worse, like, intense stuff, they just don't have it's either drugs, either really just going down a shithole or finding a way out. And that push of this is not even mediocre. This is just not a way that I want to live. Otherwise, I'm going to take the same route as my mother. And that's not an option. So what do I need to do? And that's what brought me to this place. And that's been my priority. It hasn't really been about making money, and, and that's coming now as an adult. But that was my priority, was how to be a functional, happy person in this world. And that's what I focused on, I guess, in my 20s. That's all I did. Yeah.
My story about you, whenever I've seen you or run into you, especially on a dance floor, has been that you have tapped into some kind of joy that so many other people don't have access. I mean, we all have access to it, but there's a way that you're embodying it that just radiates, and it feels contagious and infectious. And so I just wanted to reflect that to you. It sounds like you had to really cultivate it.
Shelby, I wonder how you feel about what I just said, the notion of a body knows what the body knows, like it doesn't discriminate, right? Do you resonate with this in your life and whatever, but the depth of the stuff that you've gone through, the more you allow that resiliency and the presence of the hard emotions is on the other side, is that joyous emotion, like, that complete grief and sadness is the thing that taps you into the complete oneness joy. Does that resonate for you?
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. The more we can, or the more I have opened myself with support to be able to feel the things that I just didn't think I could feel or didn't even know I needed to feel, that felt full of grief or full of fear, full of anger, the more access I've had to spontaneous connections, to joy and bliss and contentment and ease. They feel completely connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually know that on an experiential level. Like, thank you for that depth, because I can feel joy, like a childlike joy that, yeah, especially on the dance floor.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm curious, how do you bring these concepts, and they might be in your own language, of revolutionary love and resilience into the work that you do, into your counseling?
Well, oh my gosh, I don't know if you feel this, but every session is a journey of that concept of, it's not resilience, but it's that part of resilience of being with what is and trusting that there's a process and unfolding that will happen. So getting out of the own way, getting out of this desire to look like a session, for it to look a certain way, that I want my clients to feel this, and I want to do a really good job here. And I know we talked about this, so I want to bring that through, all that stuff, like, which I started off with, is gone. and that presence to be with what is with the clients and where they're taking the session and how this random concept is going to a place that is connected, but you're allowing that place. Like, that's the type of sessions I have. And this is the trusting of that has been like, I don't have to do work. I don't have to help my clients. It's just allowing them to go on this journey and possibly seeing like synchronicities and seeing areas that you want to even get further deeper in, and then finding a gem that I want to work with, and like that place that feels really real for them, and start a process around that. Whether, I know you mentioned experiential techniques. It's not just head talk therapy, but from there, whether I need to do a process around a chair work or different things that I use so that we can actually do some emotional work around that. Yeah, I definitely have the counseling background. I do coaching as well, where we can start looking at the future and how to cultivate that through different ways of different tools that I use and methods. But I think for me, getting to the core of what's going on, helping people release those really challenging emotions and find awarenesses to random things that they're bringing up and they're linked to a place that is the core of the issue, is where we go. And it has been such a beautiful journey. People have felt like, oh, wow, I didn't see that. Okay. Oh, wow. And the awareness, and it just, some people really run with it and changes their future. And yeah, and some people need a little bit extra hand holding, which is also, I have a lot of compassion for, because I have that too, as a client of somebody. So yeah, it's a journey. We go on a journey. We unpack what is actually the core stuff by looking at what's present for them, what they come in there for. Like, I'll just explain, like, do an example. Last night, my friend just walked in talking about, like, it's just, those random conversations that you just start with, like, oh yeah, the school, oh yeah, like school didn't really pay attention. Oh, I think he started talking about a funny situation that he got expelled in school, and we just kind of got into a random conversation because we know some mutual friends, and he was like, oh, I got expelled in high school at that time. I was like, tell me a little bit about that. And then he ended up telling me this hilarious story, which ended up being that he had this story with a classmate who ended up committing suicide, and I know him as well, and that unfolded into him being pissed off, and he's actually in a place where he's trying to change careers and he doesn't know what he wants to do, and he's getting pissed off about how people in the schools systems don't actually give a shit. If they just gave a shit on one person's life, the ones that are struggling, that they can actually have such an impact in how their life unfolds. And this person got expelled, the guy that committed suicide, and then he ended up eventually down the road ended up committing suicide, and then realizing, like, he actually hadn't had space to grieve that. And then we just kept going down this route and created that space for him to actually have a conversation with him that he's never had the ability to have. And then it ended up being like, dude, this is really real for you. Why don't you consider looking into this as a career or something, right? Volunteering. And then it found out that his dad has a foundation doing that, exactly that, helping kids that are youth at risk that don't have this opportunity through school to get extra care. And he's like, my dad does this. I can actually go tomorrow to his company and just check it out. I was like, boom, like, it's just this super awesome, like, just from beginning to end, purposeful flow that unfolded in itself. And it was just, really profound. It's really fun.
It sounds like you're really using the power of whatever's here in the present moment. And I love that you use the word allowing, allowing that to unfold, and then just noticing what's coming next instead of having an agenda
for somebody's healing. And you're like, I'm sure they know more than you do.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it sounds like in that example you gave, there was revolutionary love and or resilience that was there throughout the story in the connection that you had with him. And then also maybe something he could tap into more and more through being able to process that anger and that grief.
Yeah. That was at the end. And it was really hard for him because he wasn't used to feelings. So it was just creating that space, and he wasn't doing it wrong. He was just doing it his best, and having patience for that. And being like, why isn't this patient crying? Or like, why is my client not crying? It's like, they're pushing their limits to as much as they can. We just gotta let them do that and not have our own desires for how much we want them to heal and, go through. I think I've felt that a lot as a client with other people, and they're just almost like re-traumatizing me by like having their own, like how it's supposed to look. And it's like, this is what it's looking like now. So, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I just want to get up on my chair and celebrate that and underline it. It goes right back along with what you were saying earlier of when you were describing resilience, being with what is. And if we're being with what is, this is exactly perfect here and right now for this individual, because it's coming from their body's wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's what's most important.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of this is what it should look like. So.
Yeah. I'm curious if there are any practices that you'd like to guide us through, or words of wisdom that you'd like to share that can help increase resilience or access to revolutionary love.
Mm-hmm. I think so one of the things I've been starting to just create myself without any learning of this, but the concept of alter ego, that alter ego is, that it's just being another part of your personality that you don't express often. And so it's not an experiential thing, but I just wanted to bring this concept up that I've found it to be really helpful for me. But I have I don't like to call it alter, and I still need to come up with a good word for it, but it's the alter compassionate ego. And my mind, my conditioning isn't always there, right? It's something I have this compassionate place that I receive from counselors, other people that are holding space for me me holding space for others, that part doesn't really exist all the time for me. And what I've been doing lately is bringing that compassionate alter ego at times in, and because I know what that feels like, I know what that looks like in moments that I'm confused and overwhelmed and I can't make decisions and I'm being a little bit hard on myself, or something is not feeling right. I bring in that compassionate ego. I say, what is my alter compassionate ego? How would she hold space for me in this moment? How would she, what would she say to this? And it's just, I tap right in. And it's just so interesting. That little movement of perception gets me out of my own misery of you should have done this, or this is what, like, the ego is like, no, you want to be successful at that, or you want to have that. And it just goes right away to that being with what is and being okay with what is and allowing. So I don't know if that helps, but that's something I wanted to help people really, like, we can't always have we can't access people, Jesus. Like, we can't access people in our society sometimes, or in my environment. That resiliency has to be also something we need to cultivate when we don't have anybody around us. And it can be just us being kind to ourselves, because that's still work at the end of the day. How do we sustain, for it to be sustained, for it to be integrated, we need to tap in that part of me, tapping into that compassionate part. I'm just like, oh yeah, there you are. Okay. It's not an energy that I need anybody else for at this moment. It's something that I can actually pull out of myself. So if that I would love to leave. I would love for you to know, for your audience and people to know what that compassionate alter ego sounds like. I'm sure it's there and they've experienced it, and it probably is may not be theirs. It may be somebody that was so compassionate in their life that they know what that feels like, and that be the voice in moments where you're just complete lost and being mean and hurting yourself, and maybe trying to find out answers. And what would that compassionate alter ego, if she was right here, what would she act like? What would she do? What would she say? What would you guide me to?
I love that. And for me, that has been one of the main tools for learning how to talk to myself in such a different way than I used to. I channel an 80-year-old Buddhist meditation teacher that I've had for a long time, and her voice. And then eventually it's become my own. And it really works. It absolutely, I kind of rolled my eyes at it for years. And once I actually started implementing it, it works. So like thank you.
You heard about it or something in the past, and you kind of were like, this doesn't, okay, interesting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, so many therapists or, guides have tried to guide me into embodying that compassionate voice. And I was just like, no, I can't. That I had so much trauma. It was a big block. And then when I finally could, it was a game changer. Absolutely.
So beautiful. And that can be present more. And the more you do it, I think the more you experience it as your own voice, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually didn't have anybody tell me that, but I was like, hey, that's an ego. Like that can be part of my ego as well. And yeah, it's been great. And I really hope people start cultivating that, because man, would that be a good place if people had that access to them.
Absolutely. Thank you for leaving us with that. I'm really hoping that people out there try it. I'm so curious, how can people connect with you? How can they find you? What are you offering or up to these days?
Yep. I had done my first free live. I'm starting my online business. It's coming up, and it's great. It's fun. It's a lot of process, a lot of content. So they can find me at Taran Walia. So www.taran, TARANWALIA.com. So that's my website. And then I put a lot of stuff on my Facebook and my Instagram. Again, that's my full name, Taran Walia. So if you go, my Instagram it's Taran.Walia. But yeah, those are where I put a lot of my content out, do a lot of lives, do a lot of videos. I just did a free live training on how we resist connection. And there's components of what we talked about there. There's going to be a part 2 coming out, and then a part 3. But yeah, just giving this information as much as possible. So Facebook, Instagram, and website.
And you have an awesome podcast.
Yes, it's new, so it's not like, it's been. I'm like 3 episodes deep, and that's another. And it's in Spotify, and it's called Living Resilience. We did not plan that, me and Shelby, but obviously we're trauma people. So it's called Living Resilience on Spotify, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing Shelby.
Well, it has been such a gift to have you here today. Thank you for giving your time, your wisdom, your story. I'm really touched. I knew that I was going to learn things that I didn't know about you and about counseling, and I have, and I just feel really, really grateful and happy that I know you.
Me too, Shelby. I'm so grateful for you to hold some space for me to express myself and this passion that we both share about actually giving and helping people feel more joy, life force energy, and connection in their life. So it's us. We're just both helping each other help help the world. So so grateful, and thank you for doing the work that you do. Yes, totally amazing, guys.
We are in this together.
Yes.
So good to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being part of this show and being part of this love revolution. If you love this podcast, please share it with your people and leave a 5-star review so that we can get the word out. If you're a practitioner or on your own healing journey, head on over and check out creatingsaferspace.com, which is one of my passion projects and is open for enrollment now. You'll get access to it the moment you sign up. Or join my mailing list for all sorts of revolutionary love and trauma-aware support at shelby-leigh.com. See you next episode.